Welcome to the latest episode of the Step Back Podcast here on FanSided. You can find it on all of your favorite podcast apps. That includes, of course, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure to check out our other episodes during the week and our past episodes. We're now going twice a week, typically Mondays and Fridays. So we'll take you out of the weekend and then back into the next weekend. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at 5 Reasons Sports. And then my co-host on the 5 on the Floor podcast, Brady Hawk, is also my co-host here. You can find him at Brady Hawk 305. So yesterday, as we're speaking here, it's a Friday, the All-Star starters were announced. Now, what we're going to do today is we're just going to break down the East, but the entire team on the East. So what it is and what the rest should be, because the way that fan voting or the way that voting works, if you're not familiar, is for the starters, it's 50% fan vote, 25% player vote, 25% media vote. For the reserves, it's just the coaches voting, and the coaches cannot vote for their own players. So that's the way that this works. We know the starters next Thursday. There'll be an announcement of the reserves. We're going to get ahead of that a little bit today and with Monday's episode. So in the Eastern Conference, here are the starters, and we'll talk about whether or not this is legitimate or not. Giannis, Tatum, and Durant in the front court. Do you have any issue with any of that, Brady?
I don't think we could have much issue with it in general, just because, I don't know if you could have went wrong. Like, these are four of the better players in the league this year. It's just tough when I think of matchup wise. When you look at, I know we're going to get to it on Monday, but you look at Jokic on the other side, it almost feels like another true big just to match up in that way feels necessary. And the guy is literally the leader in points per game in the NBA right now. But the reason I don't really have much problem with, I guess, is for one, we were talking about it before, but the games played thing feels like it has to factor in. And at this point, he is fourth among those four players in games played. Giannis was the captain. You look at the fact of Jason Tatum playing literally 47 games. That should be an automatic. Like, if he's in the conversation, he's playing 12 more games than another guy, he's in. And then the KD factor, it feels like he's been out a while, but he's played four more games than Embiid this year. So it's like they're all kind of in the mix. I think records should kind of factor in the fact that Philly is the second seed right now in the Eastern Conference. It doesn't have an all-star starter, is a little tough. But I don't know if you could have went wrong either way. Like, this is just a full around debate.
Well, remember with the position matchup that these teams are going to get redrafted because Giannis and LeBron are actually going to pick, because they're the leading vote getters, going to pick their teams on the day. I believe they're doing it this time on the day of the game itself. So they're actually going to build up a little bit more suspense there. So basically, here's how I see this. Tatum is definite. I agree with you. The durability, the fact that Boston's been the best team in the East. Giannis, you have to put there. In my view, he's the best player in the world, and he's lived up to that this season. Look, I probably would have gone Embiid over Durant because there's been a little bit more durability there, and Philadelphia has a better record. But Embiid has missed time lately also, and I think you're right. You really could go either way here. Saying, well, Kevin Durant with the season that he's having shouldn't be a starter, and the run that they were on with Durant before he got hurt, they were on that winning streak. So I'm fine with it. We're just going to pencil Embiid in as an automatic reserve. We don't even need to discuss him later. Let's look at the guard situation, the backcourt. Kyrie Irving and Donovan Mitchell. I have an issue with one of these. You probably can guess which. Donovan Mitchell's an all-star. He went to Cleveland and he has totally energized that thing. They were good last year. They were getting better, but he's made them formidable. He's lived up to everything that they wanted when they made that trade. And look, they gave up a lot. Okay. I mean, they gave up Markkanen, who's going to be an all-star on the other side. This is one of those situations where essentially all-stars get traded for each other. But he's been worth it. No question with that. I don't think Kyrie Irving's an all-star starter this year. I think Jaylen Brown is an all-star starter this year. I mean, first thing, Kyrie had 40 last night as we're speaking, but has not really led them to a lot of victories in the number one role there. People are going to counter and say that the Celtics have lost a couple of games without Tatum, but Brown's having the better all-around season. I mean, he's just having the better all-around season, and he's also not that Kyrie has been the distraction that he's been last year, but we know that Kyrie tends to be more of a distraction than Jaylen is. I would have Jaylen Brown as a starter with Donovan Mitchell. And this idea of point guard, you need a point guard. Again, these teams are going to flip. So you're probably Steph Curry may end up on a different team than one, and you may have 2 point guards so you've got a situation where you're going to have enough point guards. I don't know. I would go with Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, I could see that argument. I feel like their numbers I was just looking at are pretty like close. Like they're almost exactly the same. And obviously, Kyrie's been the number one option for a while. Jaylen Brown's been kind of that number two option. Their numbers have still been pretty similar. I think they're both at 27 points a game right now. The only difference is since we're keeping this theme of the games played, Kyrie's at 37 and Jaylen Brown's at 44. So like
Mhm.
even that kind of thing is kind of mixed in. And if you're going to give somebody two All-Star starters, it feels like it should be the one seed and not what are they, the four seed right now? So I think the one seed should kind of get priority over the four seed, but still, this is another thing I know you feel a little bit stronger about than I do, but I think this is another one that could go either way. I think they're still very similar, and I just feel like it's the likability factor of kind of the where each player stands right now is like not that Kyrie is just this big time likable player, but Kyrie Irving has the name. Like Kyrie
Yeah.
Irving just has the name at this point, and you mentioned that the reserves are more coaching based. This is more just kind of a lot of things built together. So Kyrie getting it doesn't surprise me. And I don't think it's like a big time snub. This is just another one of those things. It was just like luck of the draw. That's what kind of felt like.
All right, so we don't really need to discuss the top two reserves because I mean, can we agree Embiid and Jaylen Brown will be on the team?
Definitely, for
Okay.
sure.
So there's 5 spots left. I'm just gonna run off real quick a whole bunch of names. You tell me, not position oriented, but who you think is the most deserving of all of these names. Ready? Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, Pascal Siakam, Bam Adebayo, Julius Randle, Zach LaVine, Jalen Brunson, Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis, Jimmy Butler, DeJounte Murray, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Halliburton, Drew Holiday, James Harden.
This may be surprising because there's a couple of these guys that I think are locks to get in. But I'm going to start with Tyrese Halliburton because I feel like he deserves this first time All Star spot, and I'm going to start with him because I know people are going to talk about the fact that like we were talking about him being an All Star starter possibly a couple like before the injury, like that's kind of the trajectory he was on. They were winning games, but he's also been available enough that even though he's missed these games, he's still at 40 games played. He's averaging 20 and 10. If it wasn't for James Harden, he'd be the leader in the NBA in assists per game. So I think he deserves being a first time All Star this year. And maybe he's not the most lock on that list, but I got to go with him first.
All right. I don't disagree with you about Halliburton, and I think ultimately he's on my team. I don't want there to be a perception of bias here because the podcast we do. But to me, the next guy is Bam Adebayo. To me, he's eighth. When I look at the rest of this list, and I know, look, we're going to discuss Trae, we're going to discuss Drew, but I just don't see somebody who's making more of an impact on both ends. I mean, now that Bam has become more aggressive offensively, and it's been consistent, and he's been carrying them at times when Jimmy plays, and all the time pretty much when Jimmy doesn't play. I don't see anyone like to me. This is not like a couple years ago where it's like, okay, is Bam going to get the 11th or 12th spot? I think I was expecting to look at this list and say we're going to have to start to make a case for Bam Adebayo to be an All-Star. There's no case to be made. It's a given to me. He's in. I
Mm-hmm.
that's and again that's not Miami bias or anything. I mean, we do see him every day, so we appreciate him maybe more than others do. But you're talking about a top 5 defender in the league, and he ain't five. And then you're talking
Or
about a
four
guy
or
who's
three.
also yeah, he's all right. You're also getting 21 and almost 11 from him at this point with 4 assists, and he's the leading paint scorer in the league and one of the leading fourth quarter scorers in the league. Still, I don't. I mean, that's to me an absolute given. All right, so he's on your team though, right? Because I may not go with Halliburton, so I want to let's go down the
Mm-hmm.
list a bit. Bam is one of your 12, correct?
For sure. He probably could have been my first one. I was going to leave it in suspense a little bit.
Okay, well I
Like,
didn't do that. All right,
I'm
so
going with Bam on my team.
all right, so we're at 8. So let's start to discuss then who is 9. And again, I might sneak Halliburton in there. I think the common perception would be it's Trae Young. Do you have an issue with that?
I do. I don't know if I am there yet. Like we'll get to the toward the end for him, I guess, but I don't know if I'm. I think the next guy that we have to talk about is honestly a Knicks player is getting in. Let me just start
Right.
with that.
Okay. So let's do that. Let's get a Nick in. Okay. There's only going to be one Nick.
And
So
I've seen like the debate go back and forth between the two of them. I personally lean Julius Randle. Like the guy's averaging 25 points per game. He's been more efficient. He's been their number one scorer. obviously there's a case for Brunson as well. He's averaging 22 a game. He's kind of been the glue to what they do. He's kind of been the efficiency guy, the guy that kind of jumpstarts their offense. But it feels like at this point, I am going to lean Julius Randle. I think he's the one Nick that gets in.
I'm with you. I kind of feel like Knicks fans want it to be Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
But I would lean that way too. I'm kind of looking at the rest of the list though as I do this because I want to make sure we're going to have enough guards. But my lean would be Randall. But if that's the case, there's a couple of these other bigs that I don't think have as good a shot. But I'm with you on it. I'll go with Randall. But let me ask you this: if there's going to be one more big on the roster, is it Siakam?
Yep. That was the other guy I was going to bring up a second ago. I think he's definitely in there. I know the team stuff gets factored into this, but obviously he's having an incredible season. He's averaging 25 a game, 48% shooting. He's been one of the real glue points to that Raptors team. He's obviously, I think, an all-star this year. So I think he's kind of that other big to throw in the mix. So we have Embiid, Bam, Siakam, and Randall as kind of the four front court players, I guess.
Well, this leaves just two spots, and I haven't given you Halliburton yet. So let's take a look at some of the others. We still have Trae in the mix. DeMar DeRozan on a team that's struggling, but his numbers are still strong. Zach LaVine. Let me ask you this question because they may not get any, and if they get any, they'll get one. If you were to say which, it's DeRozan, right? This year?
Yeah. If it was to be one, I would be DeRozan.
Okay, so take LaVine off the list. We taking anybody from Washington?
No.
Okay. Garland hasn't played enough. Jimmy hasn't played enough, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're taking Jimmy off the list.
And Jimmy doesn't want to be
there. If we're going to take one, he doesn't want to be on the list. If we're going to take one guy from Atlanta, would it be Trae or DeJounte Murray?
Trae. We still got to give it to Trae.
So we're taking DeJounte Murray off the list. So here's what's left from the list that I gave you at the beginning. I'm going to give you my next automatic then. It's Jrue Holiday. I mean, would you have any? I mean, you're talking about, again, two-way guy, second best team in the East for most of the season. Haven't had Middleton, has had to take on a little more offensive responsibility, has the respect of his peers.
I don't have a problem with it. I was going back and forth between him and this other guy. But I definitely don't have a problem with it. He's been one of the best guard defenders in the league. He's averaging 20 a game. He's obviously, guys have missed time. They haven't had Middleton. He's kind of stepped in and been the solid piece to get them through. I honestly just think at this stage, the guy I'm going to throw in the mix, I think, is Harden. And I know you'll probably not appreciate that one.
That's who it's probably going to be. But
I think that's who it'll be.
But if it's gonna be him, it's not going to be Halliburton then. Right? Well, you're saying Holiday would get eliminated. I'm sorry. I can't agree with putting Harden in instead of Holiday. I don't know. I just think that Holiday contributes more to winning overall. I know the numbers are better. I get it. I understand it. He missed a lot of time also. Did he not? How many games has he played?
Ooh, I'd have to. Here, let me see right here. He is first of all, he's the leader in the league in assists by a wide margin. So He's been pretty good offensively. He is at 31 games played. Yeah, that's actually. Now that's making me rethink some things. I'm not even.
I mean, Jimmy's played more games than him, has he not?
How many games has Jimmy been at? Is that? I mean, he is at 30, 33, 34 games played. Okay, so he's.
And you and I both know how that's looked and how that's felt. So that's you're true. Telling me, okay, if we're going, if we've got our 10 here, okay, because we've got the 5, Embiid, Jalen, Bam, Randall, Siakam. So I'm taking as my last two Holiday, and then to me it comes down to Trae or Halliburton. That's where I'm at. You're taking Halliburton and Harden.
Yeah, I think Harden gets in, but now honestly the games played stuff kind of throws it off for me honestly a little bit. But I still think Halliburton I think deserves it. Harden, I think, could be that flip with a Jrue Holiday type or a Trae Young type. Like, Trae's averaging 27 points per game, but to his standards, in my opinion, like, the shooting percentages, the impact to winning, like you were just bringing up about Harden, the impact to winning. Like, I just feel like a lot of that has to be factored in, which sounds crazy that we're like, first of all, let me just throw in the fact, like, DeRozan's averaging 26 a game and 27 a game is for Trae. and we're debating that they're not all stars. Like that's where this league is right now, talent wise.
Right.
Like that's a pretty wild thing. But I think I will go Halliburton and Harden.
You know what's gonna the record's gonna work against Halliburton now though, because they've lost 8 out of 10, and and actually Atlanta has played a little better of late, so they've kind of pulled out of that pack with the Pacers somewhat.
But doesn't that make Halliburton's case a little bit? They've lost 8 out of 10. He hasn't been playing his impact to win. Like I feel like some of that should be factored
I get
in.
it, but then we're getting into the missed games thing on the other side again. So that because what he said,
He's still at 40.
He is still at 40. That's these days. That's a lot. All right. So just to review here, okay. By the way, I would have Kyrie Irving as a reserve, okay, if Jalen was starting. So I don't want to say I wouldn't have him on the team at all. I would have him as a reserve. So the top five we agree on. Obviously, starters. We may not totally agree on the guard spot or with the guard spot the way it played out, but we all agree Irving deserved to make the team with Embiid and Jaylen Brown. So Irving, Mitchell, Giannis, Tatum, Durant, Embiid, Jaylen Brown, Bam, Randall, Siakam. Those are our lock 10. I'm going with Drew Holiday. And I'm going to say right now, just because of, even though I like Halliburton better as a player, I'm going to lean Trae there for my 12th. You're going to go with Halliburton and either Harden or Drew as your 12th. No love for Tyler, huh? If they had a better record, you could make a case here.
You could make a case, but there's too much talent on this list because then you could throw in a couple other guys. Like there's like 3 guys that we just didn't throw in the mix that are averaging above 25 points per game. And then if you're saying Tyler, you could also make the case for Jimmy. So it's like it would be tough. It would definitely be tough.
Who would be on the Heat side? We may do this on our end on 5 on the floor. On the Heat side, who would you lean towards, Jimmy or Tyler?
For All-Star, Jimmy.
Okay. Even with all the missed games, Tyler's played.
Even with all the missed games, I just think when he's played, he's had a really good season. It's just he's just missed time. Like he's been amazing defensively. Like if you look at the steals leaders, like every night he's impacted defensively in the stat category. Like he's had a good season. It just comes down to the games played. And as much as we talk about we were bringing up the bias with Bam, which I don't think is a bias. I can't give it to Jimmy just because of that factor. And like I said before, like he wants Bam and Tyler to be there. He does not.
Yeah, he doesn't. He has no intention of going. Anyway,
if he doesn't want to play in these regular season games, he doesn't want to play in an All-Star game.
No, he has no patience for any of that stuff. All right, so there you go. There are teams. Maybe we'll poll this from step back and say which 2 guards would you take at the end. So I guess I'll have to go with the opposite ones of you. So you know what? You're going to stick to Harden instead of Drew, and I'll stick to Holiday and Trae. And we'll go from there. And got a little more size, I think, on your end. Than well, yeah. Well, if I'm going to take Trae. All right, we're going to do the Western Conference on Monday, and then maybe after that, we'll kind of put together, if we were Giannis and LeBron, who we would pick to put these teams together. I think that might be a fun exercise. So check us out on the Step Back twice a week, and also check out all the content on fansided.com and on 5 on the Floor. That's at the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We cover the Miami Heat on a daily basis. Have a good day, everybody.